Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello, friends.
Welcome to the Hot Take Table. I'm Dylan.
I'm Raph.
And today we're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah.
This one isn't really like a versus mode.
Yeah,
it's a co-op mode.
That's right. It's us versus the world as far as I'm concerned.
Come at us.
Approach.
Finally, for the first time in my life, there's one person who agrees with me on something.
That's right. Well, I feel like this is the crazy man's opinion. But I think we're both the crazy man today.
Yeah, so because Raph, you and I will have these moments where we will talk about potential ideas for the podcast, what we can pitch. And I said to you, I think the internet just like ruined video games. And you, to my surprise, said, I think you might be right.
I agree. I think there's nuance in there that we can split hairs with that as we go along. But by default, I think the advent of the internet has adversely affected the production of video games, at least on the consumer side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's gotten better for like the publishers and developers.
There are more tools. It's easier to learn.
Like an easy example of that is that the cost of video games hasn't changed, but the cost of producing video games has, because specifically, there's a huge cost to like a physical cartridge, to like physical discs, actually,
to digitally release a game, right?
Yeah, not just creating the actual physical thing, but shipping it and selling it. Like, there's a bunch of costs, and when you just sell it digitally, there's none of that.
There's a weird discussion to be had here, because I think like as Americano boys, as Westerners, I think we definitely have like a certain perception of like, digital distribution is more of a new thing than not. But the NES had digital games available to it, just not in America, as did the Super Nintendo, as did the Genesis, as did the Dreamcast. Like there was a Famicom disk system in Japan, right? And retail outlets had just software loaded up. Fortunately, they just had ROMs, and they would take your Nintendo branded floppy disk, put it in there, pay the machine, and just put on what games you want on the floppy.
That's wild.
And that's like really no different. It's just you have to go to a physical location to get your digital games, which if you've got a bad network connection today.
Can we address real quick that is actually incredibly different?
That is meaningfully different.
If you are needing to go to a physical place to get the thing, that's not actually any different than going to a physical place to purchase the thing. No,
because there's cost differences associated with that, right? And the idea of like having
for the business, you mean?
Well, no, for the consumer as well.
It would be cheaper.
It would be cheaper. Like
this
games were cheaper.
Worse, maybe it's
gotten worse. Maybe it has gotten worse. At least to my understanding, I was not a Japanese boy in the 1980s. All I know is from maybe someday. All I know is hearsay. But I'm inclined to believe said hearsay. I know there's like a funny problem like doing online purchases of like Famicom disk system games where like people will sell what's written on the label of what that game is. And they'll buy it online, they'll import it, they'll put it in, and they overwrote that game at some point. It's a different game now. You could be trying to buy Mario 3 and end up getting like Excite Bike or whatever, right?
That is kind of exciting, though.
There's a little thrill. I feel that on my bike. I got that vroom.
They introduced gambling and gacha all the way back then.
Already, it's begun.
EA didn't do this.
Yeah, well, like the Super Nintendo had like satellite broadcasts on it for like digital distribution of
what was it?
Generally,
Satellaview.
Satellaview, yeah. They were like select games, right? And they were generally different. I don't think you could just like straight up download Mario World, but you could download a weird version of Mario World with voice acting. Like that was a subscription service.
Yeah.
So that was different. But I like there were add-ons for like the Genesis that had like a 56K modem on them. And to download a Genesis ROM, that was
and we've only got 4K now.
That's right. That's right. We went down. Less Ks.
Getting worse.
Less Ks in the lexicon.
Do we want to start with like our actual arguments of what we don't like about the internet, or do we want to address? Because I think there's going to be immediate thoughts of what the fuck are you talking about?
I think that's true.
The internet is great. Do we want to address some of the like the counter arguments, or do we start with the arguments?
Let's start with the arguments.
Okay.
All right. So major one, I think, as far as publishers go, the internet enables multiple bad practices, which we will enumerate in greater detail as we go. And also, like it differentiates the features that come on the game. Specifically, I'm talking about split screen multiplayer and the death of it, unfortunately. And this plays more so into the first one, but also just the practice of releasing unfinished games, content missing from discs, yada yada. There's a whole laundry list there.
I've seen people say things like, no, the internet is good because then it lets developers fix the games after they've released them. Hey, idiot. They used to not have to fix the game after they released
That's
it.
right. Correct.
Games being broken when they were released is an well,
more
it's not a new thing.
More new than not, right?
It was a thing. Then the video game crash happened, so it stopped being a thing. And then the internet happened, and now it's a thing again.
But like the internet happened, and it slowly became a thing because I think like at the onset, I think everyone was like using it in good faith, right? I think like people or developers were already accustomed to releasing
they're not
like
people. They're
they were already accustomed to releasing complete products, right?
Yeah,
and then
they
afterwards
didn't know what they could get away with.
Yeah, they didn't know. They didn't know at first.
When you start a new job and you're like, "Can I listen to music
is
during
it cool? Is that all right?
Oh, I can actually. Yeah, they're fine with that. I'll listen to podcasts then. You know what? I'm just
In
gonna watch
one
full
ear,
YouTube
in
videos.
both ears.
And all of a sudden, now
That's
half
like
your
it
day
goes
is just
on.
watching videos.
It happens sometimes.
You do that. We know you do.
But by the same logic, right? You come in and you're like, all right, so like, you know, this stage we didn't get to finish it, but wouldn't it be a fun option for the players if we just pretended this stage was never intended to be there?
Yeah,
and we
remember
release it after the fact.
Expansion packs,
packs.
The proto DLC, back when you'd have to go into your local Target or GameStop or whatever and buy like an actual box. Like if you wanted to get the Dragon Age Origins, I forget what the Awaken something. The first the actual DLC for that game. You had to go in and actually buy a physical thing and put the disc in your computer and get it.
Sims players are still living that life.
Well, they're not anymore because EA's like.
Oh, that's right. EA did get.
But that was another big thing. Is like Sims, you'd have to buy the actual physical discs, and I'm not saying that was like better. My point though is that
like in practice, this should be a better world that we're living in, right?
But you have to think through the logic of it, because the reason those expansion packs, there's a reason that expansion packs used to be like big whole things that were exciting new content. And it's because it's expensive to produce a physical product and put it on shelves and keep it on shelves. So for them, if they wanted to actually get that be worthwhile, they need to make it something desirable.
Yeah.
Now, it's so cheap to actually sell the good that you can make it any old piece of garbage and just sell it online for like $2, $5, $20, and it can be nonsense.
Like we're living in an era where many of physical discs now are literally like useless. Some, especially on the PC side, like you'll buy like a case for a game that will be empty and will only contain a code that you'll have to like deal with after the fact, right? You'll like,
dude, that's such a Switch thing too.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it. I mean, like, I rarely have bought a game that does this, but developers are doing this, right? They'll like
I've never bought it.
No, I've never.
I wouldn't.
I've never done it. But for those unaware, developers will like, especially on like a collection, right? They'll publish a game on like the smallest possible Switch cartridge. And with Switch in specific, compared to like the disc-based consoles, there is a real cost in producing the cartridges and the chips associated with those.
Yeah.
So they'll get the smallest like chip that they can for that, and then put a third to half the game. Like if you buy like let's say like the Resident Evil collections, they'll have like one Resident Evil game on there and like 2 or 3 that you'll need to download after the fact. I think Capcom is particularly egregious with this. Maybe that's just because they have a lot of legacy IP to have collections for.
Yeah, it's so dumb. I hate that because it's like, why are you even buying the physical?
Yeah, what's the merit? What's the merit?
You don't physically own anything.
There is definitely regarding digital distribution, right? And this is probably like a broader topic on like physical and digital media versus just like all of the meat that comes with internet problems. But is like how ephemeral they can be, which I think like in a lot of instances, at least during the lifespan of whatever platform you have the digital media on, it doesn't feel that way, right? It feels like you can lose a cartridge, but you'll always have this game on your account. Until we end up in like the Wii, DS, DSi, 3DS, PS3, eShop era, where those services get removed. And then you've literally got games that have like day one patches that cannot be played at all, right?
Yeah.
And that's increasingly a problem for us.
Can I make probably the best argument in favor of the internet making games better?
Hit me.
Is that emulation is so available because of the internet.
It is very
like,
accessible.
You can get any game you want on archive.org.
It's true. It's true. Now, kids, questionable legality. I'm no lawyer.
There's no question. It is illegal to download a ROM off the internet.
You can rip your own cartridge and you can be in the clear, kiddos. Most of us aren't doing that, though.
Yeah, emulation is not illegal.
Yeah, emulation is not illegal.
Downloading
a ROM,
own.
that's no good.
Yeah,
but it feel good.
Here's the thing, though. Fuck the cops. Still do it.
Yeah, I ain't no narc.
I'm totally pro that. You want to know why? It's because companies do shit like this and they put out. This is not the worst version. Like, this is not the most egregious. Square Enix is the most egregious.
Square's like modern ports of games.
Yeah,
have many an issue.
And it's like, Square, just sell us a ROM.
If you
sell us the ROM.
I believe
we're gonna play the ROM. And if you don't sell it to us, we're gonna steal it.
That is such a weird modern game thing, right? Where you're like, I'm gonna buy the game to feel okay about doing it.
No, you're not. You can't buy this.
But then I'm gonna like access it through other means because it's simply more convenient. And by other means, I mean the daggone emulators.
See, you're too nice. I'm gonna skip the buying the game part. If you release a worse version of your game, what do you want? A fucking medal? You want me to clap? Oh, good job! You put in effort to make a pile of shit. You could. But
what if it's good though? What if you come in? You know, you're feeling thievious, raccoonist a little bit.
Yeah.
And you come in here. You pirate this daggone game, and then you love it, right? And then you feel that remorse, you feel that guilt. You're like, I should have given them money.
So, but consider this: you aren't giving them money for that game. You are giving them money for the bad remake of the game. And so
in the case of like a Chrono Trigger pixel remaster, absolutely, that's the situation. Right?
So I don't want you to give them money for the bad remake because then, from their mind, people buy the bad remake. Let's keep doing bad remakes.
Here's an example of one. One of my favorite games, World Ends With You on the DS. Perfect, immaculate, excellent game. It got a modern re-release. When I was in high school, I did not purchase The World Ends With You. Read into that what you will, cops. I did not purchase this game. But I love it. And then a Switch version came out, and it is not the way I would recommend anyone to play this game, right? It's got weird controls. It's missing half the gameplay. It's not an ideal port. But I did buy it.
You're part of the problem.
I might be.
I don't actually think you're part of the problem. You might be all of the problem.
Now, here's the thing. I think in a franchise like this, right, where it's like actively struggling, I feel I did what I had to do. We got a sequel, and I don't think we would have if the modern version.
How soon after the sequel came out? I think the sequel was already in development.
I would believe that to be true.
We were absolutely getting a sequel either way.
Here, have you heard the
remake was so that people would buy the sequel, so that because if they're like,
I think that's true of the anime production. I think that's less true of the Switch version. I do think that was like just a poke to see if there was interest. Did you hear what Square did with the DS release of Chrono Trigger?
No, what did they do?
So the DS release of Chrono Trigger is fantastic and the ideal way to play that game. However, it was a DS game in the era where R4s were rampant. And the intent for that DS release was to gauge interest in the franchise and see if maybe we do another Chrono thing, maybe a Chrono 3. What are we going to do there? Everyone loves that port. Everyone's very happy with that game. Didn't do well. We didn't get no Chrono, nothing.
It is funny because I do feel like the DS era is when remakes were good.
That's true.
I feel like almost every DS remake of a game was good.
There were all kinds of like 3D remakes of Final Fantasy games. And now I feel like it's just like a difference of taste if like you want like the low poly aesthetic or like the sprite aesthetic. But they were competent remakes.
You can make an argument that Final Fantasy 3 aesthetically looks better in the original than in the 3D remake. But I think from a mechanics perspective, the game plays better on the the DS version.
It's a straight upgrade.
It's objectively better from a gameplay perspective.
There's like 3 Super Nintendo era Dragon Quest games that got re-releases on the DS. All of them, at least for an English speaker, that's pretty much the only option, but it's a very good option.
Do you wonder if like R4s are what made Square Enix go to the dark side then? That it's like during the DS era, they were like, you know what? we're gonna go all in. We're gonna make these great, and then no one bought them. Everyone just stole them, and then they're like, you know what? Fine, we're gonna pump.
How
out
about
shit.
mobile? How about mobile? People buy things on mobile. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we don't release it for $50. I'm not sure.
It's not 50. It's only 20.
I think it's like 20. Honestly, I'm sympathetic to the idea of releasing a console game for $20 on mobile. I have no problem with that, but I think the mobile market does.
Yeah, the mobile market absolutely does.
Yeah, and I think that's a little unfortunate. I think that's how we get to some of the other predatory practices that the internet has enabled from there.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the internet.
Oh yeah, we're talking. I mean, yeah. I mean, well, you know.
That's unrelated there's a to one another. In front
That's
of me.
Right. That's what that Netgear box is. But like something like this happens. Like this particular port, audio only, guys. I'm pointing at Chrono Trigger on the TV.
Yeah.
Is a port to consoles and PC of the mobile version of this game, right? And there have been patches afterward to make things marginally better. But its UI is scaled for mobile. It's like font is a tragedy.
Yeah. Dude, I hate Square Enix so much.
There's such a weird specific thing about like complaining about Square Enix text boxes. It feels like a minor complaint in the grand scheme of things, but you spend so much time in text boxes in those games.
Most of RPGs are reading text boxes,
and that's why a game with a good UI just becomes a good RPG.
Yeah. That is the biggest selling point of Persona 5.
It really truly is. It's just like
look, if all you're doing in a JRPG is going through menus, and this game has the best menus,
I
mean.
maybe it's one of the best
great.
in the genre. but yeah, like always online games are a thing that exist.
Should we talk about DRM for a second?
God.
Back in like 2012 to 2014, and there was like a big like anti-DRM thing, and then all of a sudden, like people are just okay with it now. Like I don't know what changed. I think what changed is that it hasn't been as aggressively. They haven't.
This is a good example of like buying a game and then afterwards being like, yeah, but I'm gonna pirate it to get rid of the DRM, right?
Steam has DRM.
Yeah, I mean Steam is DRM.
Yeah, that's the thing. And there are people that get like really annoyed that if a game isn't on Steam, and they're like, oh no, I want all my games to be on Steam. Are you stupid? Are you an idiot little baby? What's wrong? You want every game to have DRM in it? You're also promoting a monopoly?
That's very
valid.
You want
Steam to have a complete monopoly? Are you stupid? Do you know anything?
I think it's as a consumer, it's very accessible and nice to have everything in this singular library for this platform. However, this breeds the dark.
But like, this is what happened with Amazon.
Yeah,
right? Amazon
was
was really convenient, and then they're like, everyone's just like, no, but I mean, Amazon's great. If they don't do anything evil, then it's gonna be fine. Oh no, they're doing evil things. Well, they have 100% market share.
Evil is tempting. It's like I'm not happy to live in a world where everything's got its own individual launcher, and I don't necessarily want to go back to that. But I think like the idea of
go back to that. We're still in that.
I mean, it was good for a little bit.
Let me tell you something.
It was real nice for just a little bit.
Let me tell you something. Okay, I've got Game Pass for PC, and I purchased Jedi Fallen Order on Steam. Okay. And I bought this a while ago, and I was recently playing because I've been in a Star Wars mood lately. Obi-Wan Kenobi's made me in that mood, right?
Yeah.
So I was playing Jedi Fallen Order. You need to launch it opens up the Origin app to do that. The nice thing is it does it in the background, so you don't have to interface with it. But on Xbox, on the Xbox app, if you load any EA game up,
Xbox app on Windows, right?
On Windows, yes.
Okay.
It requires you to have the EA's app. It's the EA app. EA has two different digital storefronts that they use. And here's the kicker. They can't both be open at the same time, which means I couldn't download Star Wars Squadrons while playing Jedi Fallen Order because one uses Origin and the other uses EA.
That is disgusting.
After I installed Star Wars Squadrons, I couldn't launch Fallen Order without crashing my computer.
That's rough.
Because of the EA app. And I eventually fixed it, but it was this whole nonsense. And it's just like, bro, I'll give you one. I'm okay with one. If you're going to have two, though, we're going to have serious issues.
Yeah, that
is
dual layered DRM is very rough.
And you can't have them both open at the same time. And they actively hate each other.
What do they want you to do then?
I don't know.
What do
Pirate their games? I
probably,
guess.
probably. They're just begging for it at that point.
Yeah, I don't fucking know, man.
That's awful.
Just like use our app. No, not that one.
Oh man, there's a PC rhythm game that I enjoy quite a bit, DJ Max, right? And like as you might imagine, it's not a particularly resource intensive game. Like there's music, there's like PNGs of rectangles. They fall down, you press the button. The game itself is lightweight. However, the DRM is not. The DRM is what dictates the system requirements, right? If you told me that like Denuvo was like mining crypto in the background, I would believe you. And the DRM is always online, right? So like at one point in time, like I did pre-order a Steam Deck. I'm waiting for it. I'm excited about it. Yeah. And I was thinking about like, oh man, I'm gonna be able to play DJ Max on the go. That's gonna be great. And then I remembered, no, I won't. That game has always online DRM. Big bummer. Sonic Mania. I think this is another easy one to overlook. But that game on PC has the same. I think it is Denuvo. It's got the software on it. This is a 16-bit sprite-based game. The system requirements on it do not correlate with that, right? Like it's actually like, you probably want like an i5 and like 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and you're like, for what? This ran on a Genesis, bro.
Oh my god, that's insanity. Let's talk about multiplayer games.
Let's talk about multiplayer games,
because I think most people would say, but the internet made playing games online.
I think that's
amazing.
That's an easy feather in the cap at first glance, right?
But here's the thing: multiplayer games suck because people suck. I don't want to play with people. Fuck everybody. Online games are bad.
I don't want to play with strangers on the internet. If you're the type of person that I would welcome into my home to sit upon my couch, eat my chips, we're gonna have a good time though.
But that's another thing. I want to have it, back in the days. I remember when I was a kid getting a Minecraft server. I didn't have money. You couldn't like buy a server host or anything. You had to get like run it on your own computer and do like port forwarding and stuff. That I'm okay with. I'm okay with that.
I suppose if you're giving the player the option
it's so exclusive.
But here's the thing, right? Like I feel like this is gonna apply more for shooters than anything else, which isn't even necessarily my favorite genre.
Shooters.
But shooters got it bad here. I think only Halo is actively making an effort to keep these features alive. And honestly, that gives it like a place of prominence in the market in my eyes. But we went from an era where you'd be like, I want to have a good time. I'm going to a Blockbuster or whatever. I'm going to spend my $50 to $60 depending on the era. And we're going to have our friends over. We're going to get pizza. And we're going to have a good time. If you try and do that now, it's like, all right, I got to spend $50 to $60 on the game. And you have to spend $60 on the game. And you have to spend $60 on the game. And we all got to bring our Xboxes. And we all got to connect on the same, probably pretty shitty Wi-Fi. And then we could pretend to have like a split screen experience.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that people say that online games have brought people together, but they actually have only brought people together who were far away. They have created distance between people who were already together. They have
enabled the distance to an extent, right?
No, I think they've required it. Like a lot of games, like shooters, you can't really do that in person.
It's a big headache to attempt to do.
The only exception is Nintendo, and this will be the only time that I praise Nintendo. This episode, Nintendo are kings because they don't know what the internet is.
It's great.
It's amazing.
Here's how I feel about the internet and games, right? Like I feel like the DS and Wii era is probably my favorite era.
Download play?
Exactly. Download. You got one cartridge. One dude with Mario Kart could feed a family of 8 with that business. That's the good stuff. But I feel like there was something special about this era. And like in hindsight, it's very easy to complain about friend codes and the like. But
it still is. A lot easier, actually.
Yeah. But here's the thing about games during this like early internet era. The internet was over here and the games are over here, right? So it's like I have a whole game, and then sometimes I'm gonna boop on the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, and I'm gonna get a thing or two, and then you just go about their day. Like that was the era where I think it was the best of both worlds, and part of that I think is because like limitations on the Wii with storage. prevented developers from being able to come in with a massive day one patch. Like PS3 and 360, I feel like is when this started being a thing.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked enough about day one patches
Day one
and day
patches
one
are
DLC
disgusting.
and shit, because I think a lot of what we've said up until now does feel like big boomer energy.
Probably.
It does feel
I
lot.
invoked the idea of Blockbuster and pizza.
I am just imagining the idea of a Zoomer watching this episode and just thinking, what are these two old
Like,
fucks
just
even
play
saying?
Fall Guys with your friend, dog. Get on Discord and do it.
Okay, Fall Guys is actually kind of...
I do like Fall Guys. But I used to play Fall Guys with my roommate all the time. But however, it would have been way better if there was just a dividing line in the middle and we both played Fall Guys.
Dude, I'd play Fall Guys with you right now if we could.
Bro, it's on the Switch now. You see that? It's got issues, but it is there. And it is free. Maybe we play Fall Guys. Like here, look, it's so nice to be able to be like, I have my Switch, you have your Switch. We're gonna play Fall Guys.
I didn't bring my Switch.
Well, I mean, theoretically, we come in here, we all have our own screens. Like, it's convenient
Nintendo's
to do
making
that, right?
it good.
It's convenient. But if this was on like a big boy platform, especially if it was like PC exclusive, right?
Yeah,
if I wanted that which it was, you have that experience where you're like, all right, we're gonna lug this over here. This is why I've got this TV on wheels, dog. I didn't do this for the podcast. This is to play Monster Hunter World with the homies. We all got tiny PCs just to make this act simpler.
You do have so many monitors.
Oh god, if you don't know,
like, I still remember when Smash Ultimate launched. And you just had every room in this house had several different TVs hooked up, everyone playing Smash
behind me,
and no one brought any monitors.
That's true. I
think many people probably asked you, "Hey, do
if
you
they
need me to bring any monitors?"
And I told them no.
No,
I've got all we need. I might have told them to bring a console, but a display, no.
Yeah.
No. Just come on down.
Oh man, but so day one patches and
day one
DLC.
Egregious.
Let me say, I hate Gust for this reason. Do you're not a big Atelier guy, right?
No.
So Gust does this a lot, and I think Tales is doing it now too. The Tales series.
I loaded up Tales of Arise, and I was excited to play this game. But like after the title screen, the first thing that happened was a massive EULA, and that put a terrible taste in my mouth. It was so disgusting.
Fuck contracts.
Oh my god, I cannot believe it.
So Gust, here's the thing about me. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I really just want to play dress up in most video games. I don't know that I've said that about myself, which might change the way that you view me. Good. Okay.
Good.
It's probably a nicer view.
A more accurate picture. Bring it out.
I just want to play dress up. The reason I bought Elden Ring was because I wanted to just play I wanted to play Fashion Souls.
I saw
Everyone's
some
been
very
talking about
interesting creatures.
And then I stopped playing Elden Ring because I didn't know I couldn't do it. Then I figured out how to make actually an attractive character in Elden Ring, and suddenly I started playing it again.
Elden Ring's got a big EULA with the tiniest font. So for ants.
But so back to Gus. The games used to have a bunch of costumes.
Yeah.
That was a very common thing.
Yeah.
You'd have costumes, you could dress up. Gotta love Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest 11 still has those. You don't pay anything. You just have them.
To be fair, I think a lot of those came through in like enhanced re-releases. I don't know
fuck
if all
Dragon Quest.
I don't know if they were all there from the beginning. I'm gonna be honest.
Then fuck them, because I mean I did play like 11S.
Yeah.
But anyways, the Atelier games, they've got costumes. You have to buy them all, and they're all available day one. Which means that they made something for the video game and then took it out of the video game, and then are selling it to you.
They took it out of the game.
You can buy like an Ultimate Edition or whatever and get all of the DLC and stuff on day one, but then you have to spend like almost twice as much for a game you don't even know if you like.
That's true.
It's ridiculous. I just want to play dress up. You're going to make a character like Ryza and then charge me money to dress her. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's why they did it.
Yeah.
That's why but
I hate that they have the option.
Imagine living in a world where you're like, I wanna buy this video game so I don't have to buy real clothes to do the dress up in. And then they make you buy the clothes anyway, dog. It didn't have to be this way.
It's fun.
It is exploitive. I feel like,
not to mention other day one DLC that you can buy, like not just costume related stuff, like actual gameplay related stuff, like day one patches.
Like characters in Capcom games, Street Fighter 4 specifically had this problem big time. And to a degree, I'm a little sympathetic towards this particular play because the situation was there, like, all the data for the characters was on the disc, right? Like, at the point that they printed out the disc, it was there. Now Capcom's argument is, well, we were like working on these characters while the game was going through certification, so we couldn't ship with these characters, but we figured it would make the download easier on people if they were already on the disc. Which maybe that's true. No. But also, like, you ever play Marvel vs. Capcom 2? There are like 50 some characters in that game. They just used to be there. You could unlock characters. The experience of just like naturally unlocking a character, or like playing a game and not knowing that there was a playable character and only discovering it on a playground through like a convoluted like sequence.
Oh yeah.
That was the good stuff.
Yeah. The internet also ruined games because you get spoiled on everything.
Everything.
You're trained to look to the internet for solutions now.
Yeah, first hurdle, you're like, let me just go over here.
Like, you just know everything that happens in games because of the internet. You just look shit up, and it's bad.
I think, like, you have something like Persona 5 lets you do the thing where you can just look up what people are doing, right? And I feel like that's like a weird concession to be like, all right, we know you're gonna do it anyway.
I actually, and this is gonna sound insane, I like that in Persona 5 because everyone does it already. It just makes it easier.
I think I was more about it like in the early life of the game, right? Where like there were people actively making mistakes. They're like, okay, what did people put on this test question? We got like 30% of them over here, and another 20 there, and another batch here. But now, like, if you do, it's like, oh, just 90% of people pick the right answer, and then everyone else makes a mistake.
It is really funny to see the people that made the mistake and just think like, you had to be playing online for it to register, right? You had to have been playing online for it to know what you answered. So you chose to answer wrong. You chose that.
They either chose to answer wrong, or this was like the first player, right? Like like all the data from like very early in the game's life is still like lingering in there.
Yeah,
right?
I guess that's true.
There's a non-zero number of dudes who did this.
They don't reset it weekly.
It's true.
That would be sick, actually.
If they reset it weekly, a little open to that type of idea. Like,
it'd be fun because then by now you'd only have like 10 people answer.
I think MMOs do this type of thing a lot, right? Well, they'll be like, oh, there's fucking MMOs. There's an event, like, you know, come on in here and get like this timed exclusive costume. And I feel like that would be fun in theory if they just didn't take it to like the worst, like exploitive, like nth dimension that it could be, right? Yeah. And naturally, if you're playing something like a Genshin, which got like 3 tiers of premium currency, and you're trying to get a character with like limited availability, that FOMO kicks in.
Let's also remember that gacha didn't exist before the internet. You
could buy a plastic thing at a grocery store.
Yeah, gacha literally did.
But before you used to just you bought the game, and the game had the characters, and you would get the characters by playing the game.
Yeah,
that was
imagine
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Dude.
Alternate like colors are another thing. Like I think I saw like an image recently of like an old like a character editor for Halo. And I was just like, you know, straight up RGB, every color of the rainbow, pick what you want on pieces of armor, right? And then there was like a post from Microsoft regarding like these features not being in infinite. Like, oh, you know, like it's just not something that we did. But now they got premium colors on sale, dog.
Yeah, it's gross. But beyond just like it's inarguable. The internet did promote the ability for developers to implement like immoral, egregious like practices for like selling things.
Yeah,
I'm not finding the right words. But the beyond that, they also just encourage you to make like unreleased games. Like Bethesda is the biggest example. It's like Fallout 76. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. I think I mentioned it on the
I think we talked about premium
episode
packs at one point. I feel that's a familiar sequence of words.
But I mean specifically how Bethesda has been trained to just release unfinished games.
Yeah.
And people are just okay with it. And then Fallout 76 happened and all of a sudden people weren't okay with it.
That's true.
And it's like the problem is
they just found the line that they couldn't cross, right?
Yeah. I will say The one exception to this is you do have the good guys of video games, the No Man's Sky team.
Yeah.
Who were just an indie team who got kind of fucked over by publisher deals and a lot of nonsense that meant that they had to release a bad video game that was kind of out of their control. And then they chose to selflessly fix it just for the sake of making the game good.
They are heroes for fixing it. But I would argue that the only reason that anyone even considered enabling the position that they found themselves in initially was because the prospect of fixing something in post was always available to them.
I don't know in this. I think in the No Man's Sky example, that specifically isn't the case. It is the case in most examples, but I think that one is an outlier. But alternatively, what they could do is just what devs used to do when you make a bad video game. You just make a new video game that's good.
That's true. That's true. I think.
Have you considered that? That's an option. You can just make a sequel that's good. Like, sequels are getting less frequent.
That's true.
Because devs will release unfinished games and then just spend the next 2 years fixing the game.
There's the Overwatch and Overwatch 2 situation, right? And I feel like
don't even.
We got it. I already invoked it.
Fuck Blizzard. Okay,
Blizzard's got a lot of problems.
Microsoft is stupid for buying them. I don't know what the fuck you were thinking with that.
Before I even get on this soapbox, let me do a quick little history tidbit. So, I might have mentioned this on the show before. I'm not sure. Unsurprising to many an individual who know me well, I've got a strong preference for Japanese games, and this comes from a certain place. Japanese developers, like especially like your early major players, like your Bandais and Namcos, your Segas. Most of these guys grew up, so to speak, publishing games in the arcade era, right? Where it was very costly to patch a game after it launched, right? You'd have to send out new motherboards to arcade operators and have them like flash like memory chips. Big problem. So ideally, you get it right the first time. You do everything you can to get it right before it ships. And the history of Japanese console games, at least up until recently, I feel like it was like largely like matched this like good discipline that they learned here. Generally, PC developers in the West, or Western developers generally cut their teeth on the PC, right?
Yeah.
Where especially like come the 90s era, like post Doom, where internet enabled machines were like doing a hot fix afterwards was not necessarily uncommon. And there are benefits that come with that, right? But now we're in the unfortunate era where I think the Japanese devs are learning the bad habits of the Western devs. And now we're in the worst of both worlds.
I don't know that that's true. I do think that even still, Japanese devs are less likely to release broken games.
I think straight up broken game, that's true. But I think DLC issues.
What they've been copying is not releasing bad games and fixing them later. Is they have started to realize that you can do the day one DLC stuff, and selling like bad things,
money
like
to be made,
like what Atlas does.
Atlas hurts my heart.
They'll make Persona 5, they'll sell DLC for Persona 5, they'll resell you Persona 5 Royal with all of the DLC from Persona 5, and then make DLC for that.
Like I think one of the arguments against the proliferation like the sequelization of like older games is that like Street Fighter situation where you end up with like 3 super ultra turbos, right?
What's wrong with that?
The counter I would say is like all of those added compelling content, right? And obviously no one's excited to buy the same game multiple times, but
except for Dragon Quest fans. Oh
man, one of those games to get a kid. The only one going through time or whatever. I don't know if that's the same. They got a lot of similarities. Anyway, shoot, like I think there's a lot of merit in releasing a finished product, and then if you're gonna add on to that finished product, like
understatement of the year,
there is great merit in releasing a finished product.
It's nice to just make something nice and then release it
and be done and succeed. But shoot, where am I going with this?
Sorry, I completely.
It's all good. It's all good. I think the argument of like, well, isn't it better now that it's just DLC and you don't have to rebuy the game? I think I'm sympathetic towards this, but you see Street Fighter 4, they just did both, dog. They have DLC.
The Persona example also, they
just did
both.
Exactly. They like Now it's the
these
worst of
aren't
both
mutually
worlds.
exclusive. You can do both.
They unfortunately learned that they can do both.
Yeah.
And sometimes you even have to double dip on DLC, right? Like, well, I bought the DLC in the vanilla version of the game. Now we're on Super Turbo or whatever. I gotta buy the DLC over here too.
Yeah.
And that's rough.
Do we want to talk about games as a service at all?
I do. Because we opened the Overwatch like rotten egg, right?
Yeah.
We cracked that thing open. Let's talk about it right here.
We should get into that. I don't know if I have any immediate thoughts other than all of them are bad, but I don't know if I can articulate why.
I think I can articulate why.
Go for it. Hit me with it.
So, like the traditional like purchase product way of getting a video game, you know, the value has to come from the game itself, right? Like the developer is incentivized in you having a good time with that game. Otherwise, A, they won't be interested in it initially to purchase the game, or B, they'll be less interested in any like subsequent product from the developer or sequels, right? You bring up games as a service, and this brings things closer to the arcade era, but in a worse kind of way. Because like our arcade devs are like incentivized by like players spending time in the game, right? And this is not true generally for games as a service, but like an arcade only really has like one like way to generate revenue, right? It's like you quarter or you don't, and an arcade game's gotta be attractive enough to get you to quarter up the first time and want to quarter up subsequent times. You got games as a service, you know. That now we got addiction coming in, right? Like every dev is like, oh, you know, you can play this much, but like it'll be way faster if you spend $5 here. Also, we have like new characters coming out. You can buy those. Well, actually, you can't buy those. You can buy a chance to buy those. And things go on
back
from
when
here.
you could just buy new characters.
You can just buy them. I think
those
like
were the days.
Like Smash Bros DLC, I think is like a shining example of like what good DLC could be, right? But even then, I think you could argue like, what if Ultimate just like spent a little more time in the oven and some of those characters were just in the base game?
Yeah.
And I think there's also like in a competitive game, you have like the power creep of the DLC privilege, right?
Let's also talk about how I think that the internet made competitive games worse because of patches. Like we don't get that experience anymore of like a game like Melee coming out. I don't know any examples because I'm a dumb baby. Watch the fighting game episode to remind everyone.
I don't remember if I talked about this guy or not.
But like how you would have tier lists and everyone would say this character is like dog shit tier. And then all of a sudden there'd be one dude that would show up to a tournament.
I'm Sayoshi.
And he would just know the character and everyone would be like, what the fuck?
Going on?
And it would make everyone reevaluate all of their tier lists. Now that still can happen.
Right.
But the problem is that when something is too powerful in a tier list, it will get nerfed.
Right.
And then they'll buff the things that are
it
low
cuts
on
off the opportunity for immersion gameplay, right?
Yeah. The problem is that like in a good game, there would exist counterplay for all of these things. And maybe the game is just broken and some of the characters are just dog shit.
Well, maybe you're just not allowing people to discover that counterplay, right? Like maybe it's not obvious. And like there's enough like outcry that the developer is just like pushed into a situation where they issue out a patch.
Yeah.
But maybe like you just didn't allow something to flourish.
In modern competitive games, a lot of times the best characters for the average person are just going to be whatever is the easiest because tier lists fluctuate so much that being able to just quickly pick up a character has a lot of value.
I remember once Smash Ultimate, like they announced that this truly was like the final DLC pack. I remember I had one friend who approached me and was immediately like, how does it feel to be playing a dead game? Are you going to stop playing now? And that hit me deep in my soul.
Who is this person?
They will not be named.
You will tell me after they're done recording.
This, yeah.
You have to tell me so that I can never trust anything that person says
that offended
again.
me deeply, and I was like, no, man, the game just started. Now
are they watching this?
Potentially. I don't even know if they'll recognize.
If you said that, we're going to have words
we'll
later.
Find you. Oh, man. Same energy, different person. I was playing a particularly interesting game. I don't know if I ever talked about Spark the Electric District 2 on this stream.
I don't think you have on the podcast.
This is a very like it's it's the best or worst game I've ever played. It's the way that I would describe it.
The room of video games?
I love this game. And not even like in an ironic kind of way. I love playing this game.
Okay.
Its story and presentation are a whole other conversation, but I love to play this game. Like I'll like have like 30-minute stretches where like, you know, your fingers get the twitches. I'm like, I wish I was playing this game. I want to do those inputs. They satisfy me. But yeah, it's a game from a solo indie dev, right? It's like a fully 3D platformer. It plays like Sonic Adventure. It scratches my itches.
I remember you showing me this.
Yeah,
I remember this.
It's an interesting little thing out there. But you know, one of my roommates comes out one day, sees me playing this game, sees that I am playing this game again and again and again, and he's like, "Oh, the developer is like putting out new content, right? Like good on the developer." And I'm like, "No, the developer is working on a sequel." And he's like, "Oh, well, why are you still playing this then? Like, if you've already played it and the game is dead, why would you still play it?" Because they made the game good. Because they made it good the first time. They just released it and it was good. And I like that. And I like to play things that bring me joy.
Yeah, like imagine just playing a good video game.
Imagine it.
Remember when that used to happen?
Oh, man. I do remember. I do recall. I feel like a lot of the games that I enjoy the most, especially like on the single player side of things, do just kind of bypass this whole situation. Like we talked about Dragon Quest XI's, and like there's some like it does do the like subsequent iteration of an existing game type of thing, but I think it added meaningful contributions. And I only personally bought it the one time. Actually, that's not true. I bought the enhanced edition on 2 platforms. I have it on PS4 and on Switch. But you know, I'm like 60 hours into this game. I got it on sale. I got it on $20. I'm definitely gotten my $20 worth out of it. There's plenty more video game to go in there. It's a generous game. I miss generous games. Here's an example that exists of it. You know, some people are still out there making them, but they're becoming fewer and far between. Like, as of time of recording of this, Mario Strikers Battle League came out. And this game is a good game. It's very light on features at the moment. I feel like it's exactly this reason. It's one of those like I feel like an otherwise good dev is like picking up on bad modern habits, right?
Yeah, Mario sports games used to be good.
I think like this game is very fun to play.
I don't know what happened. Internet.
But like exactly. They're like, well, like we'll come out now and we'll fix it tomorrow.
Yeah,
and that's I feel like the
Nintendo is. I know I said one nice thing about Nintendo. I'll immediately take that back. They are the worst about it because what they'll do is they'll release games with the assumption like, yeah, and we'll do that thing where we update it for free as time goes on. But then if the game doesn't meet sales numbers, whatever they've decided, they just won't do that. Like they'll say they will, but then they just won't.
Yeah.
And then so you buy a game with the expectation that they'll have content updates, but then there just isn't.
Like so some games are pretty good about it. Like Splatoon had like a nice long life of like online updates. And again,
Splatoon is the only good video game on the internet.
You know what? I'm gonna agree with
and
that.
You can quote me on that, and that's where we'll end it.
That's it.
That's it.
Get inked, brothers.
Thanks for watching. Let us know in the
Buy
comments.
this on VHS. Don't you dare stream it. I don't know. I got them numbers. I'm looking.
Let us know how wrong we are in the comments. Maybe we'll do a follow-up. This might be a fun thing to do a follow-up if enough people disagree with us vehemently on it.
There's no one here making counterpoints. You know, we're in the echo chamber. If what we've said angers you, come on down. Let us know.
Let us know if you like co-op mode.
Yeah,
co-op mode was a new thing for us. We can do verses again.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna do more verses.
All kinds of, I had a friend today tell me like, bro, after that One Piece podcast, I started watching it, and I'm 60 episodes in, and that warmed my heart. That's what it feels like to be an evangelist.
Well, anyways, thanks for watching. See you later.
Bye.